I walked down the river, I think I counted about 40 mills on the main river. There's more than that on the tributaries, but there's lots of mills. And of course nowadays, very few of them are used. The one below the one in the background is the Whitchurch Silk Mill, which is still used. The one that I used to work at down at Nursling was where the river was probably 4 or 5 times as big as it is up here, and the mill was ginormous, and I had control of all the hatches. But in 2003, Nursling Mill got turned into 3 very posh apartments. One really big apartment, a smaller one, and then a 1-bedroom one. So one day, 2 people moved into the big posh apartment, and they were a lovely couple. I'm going to say Mr and Mrs Spriggs, but that might not be their real name. You see, I'm learning. Anyway, they're very posh people, and Mrs Spriggs always had like a tweed jacket on, a silk scarf, and whatever she was wearing, she had a big brooch on, real sign of poshness. She was a headmistress at a local school, so she was obviously a very clever lady. Me and Mrs Spriggs got on remarkably well anyway, but about 4 weeks after they'd moved in, I got a phone call from the landlord and said that he'd received a letter from Mrs Spriggs and that I really needed to see the letter. And I'm thinking, my goodness, what have I done to upset Mrs Spriggs? Couldn't really think too much about it. So anyway, he said he would come down the next day. So sure enough, he turned up the next day, pressed this letter into my hands, told me not to worry. The letter said what a helpful, polite and very kind riverkeeper, and how kind I'd been to them, and explained the river and blah 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 blah. Which, whew, thank goodness for that. But then it went on to say, it's just one problem. It's unbelievably noisy sometimes, and we just wondered if you could ask Donnie, the riverkeeper, if he could perhaps turn the river off. Certainly at weekends, maybe say 7 p.m. on a Friday, and then fire it up again, you know, Monday morning, or bank holidays definitely, when we've got friends over. Never did ask Mrs Spriggs where the stopcock was to turn the river off, or indeed where the tap was to turn it back on. But I wonder if it ever went through her mind. Did she not think that people downstream would suddenly wonder where the river's gone? Oh, no wonder we drink too much, got no hair. I mean, come on.